Okay, get ready for a very special episode of Good Thinking around retail basics. So, this is really about store experience, store design, visual merchandising, windows, signage, really the store experience, overall, everything having to do with retail and our extensive experience and expertise in that. So, there's a ton of takeaways, a lot of amazing things. So, enjoy and let us know what you think.
Hey everyone, it's Chris.
And Kirsten.
Welcome to Good Thinking Weekly, the podcast where we discuss the best of the best in brands, marketing, and culture.
Thousands of people, top execs from the likes of Complex, Klaviyo, Walmart, Wall Street Journal, and LVMH tune in every single week.
We run a creative consultancy in Good Co, so we know what it takes to build a good brand.
Subscribe on YouTube, your favorite podcast app, and Good Thinking on Substack for more.
All right, let's dive in.
Welcome to Good Thinking.
This is going to be a fun one. I'm excited. This is very much your wheelhouse. We're going to really dive into your lands, which are also my lands now, but like really were originally your lands that you welcomed me into.
I think there's a song about that. Now there are lands. This was your land.
Anyway, so we're going to talk about retail, right? We're going to get into all things retail. This is going to be kind of a series over the next few weeks, like getting into in-store and store experience. And then we're going to talk about the future of retail. And then we're going to talk about online and everything that's happening in AI. There's so much to talk about here. It touches on a lot of things. Pop-up and experiential will come into it. So it's going to be a few tangents that we're going to kind of go down over the next few weeks.
Yes, but really honing into retail and all the things you need to know. And so we're starting today to really lay out the ground.
Yeah.
Here's the basics.
Let's dive in. Retail 101, which honestly, you'd think at this point is not something that we need to be talking about. But I guess the point of this whole experience is that we will do this deep dive soon, but we did a retail tour in LA of all things athleisure. And there was a lot happening that was not working. So out of that, we birthed this.
Right. And we always, as we go into stores, as we go into hotels, like we just have opinions. And,
we do.
We have experience doing them. So I think they're valid opinions. And we just really wanted to share because we have so many clients, so many people asking us, so many people in the space of really, okay, let's fundamentally lay out the basics. Okay.
Yeah.
Store experience.
And even if you're not in retail, like I would just say, even if you're not in retail and you are listening, a lot of this conversation is really about positioning and it's really about brand experience in general. So while it's like quite narrow on the topic of retail, I think we're going to be talking about a lot of things that are not just retail.
That's a great call. And also retail, as we all know, like it's an experience. And so it hits on all of those parts and pieces that, you can take away for any brand. Okay. So where are we starting?
Let's dive in. We're starting with, I think, broadly, which is obviously how I like to start, with positioning. Because to me, that's vibe, energy, brand, how you're differentiated, right? And sometimes it seems that brands don't even really aren't even having that approach, Like, I would think about Brandy Melville. It's not my favorite retail experience, but it is certainly a vibe.
They're killing it.
They are killing it. And I think too often there's this approach, and you might be able to speak to this if it's like people coming more over from like wholesale or whatever it is that's causing this effect. There's sometimes you just walk into a store and it's just bland. Like we went into Beyond Yoga, for example. Oh, I could get into it all day, but I can't because there's nothing to say. Literally nothing to say about it.
Yeah. You could have put any hang tag, any logo in there, and it could have been somebody else. And I think that's the concern, right? You're kind of everything to everybody, so it's really to nobody.
Right. And so I think, so throughout I was thinking of like, let's give some examples of people not just doing it wrong, but also doing it right. And so I said Telfar, right? Because to me, we talked about them in the New York newsletter, which I'll link to. They're not maybe a household name in some households, but they're a household name in many households. And I just think that everything that they're doing is so intentional. When you come into the store, You are brought into a literal experience. Then they have a very unique shopping experience for the clothes and then the apparel. And then you go in and you have a very unique, like, and localized shopping experience for the bag. And we should add, localization, like, on a different podcast.
Yeah. 80-20. Make sure it's 20% localized.
That's the rule. And that rule has worked and continues to work. So I would say when you're doing kind of these rollouts, like, that 20% is really what ends up being the thing that people often remember and take away. Like, I even think about Uniqlo and just how they do those kinds of, like, big display things. And, like, that's not in every single, but they have a kind of a different approach, and then it's a different one in each location. And again, that space is a vibe. Like, it's,
Totally. Totally. I think for me, thinking about it, the positioning within retail and how it differentiates is, if you took off all of the logos, all of the hang tags, would you know that it was a particular store? And I think Telfar is killing it. I don't feel like people know about it enough, but it is differentiated in so many ways. There's so many parts that I want to just like say, yes, it's a great example in a lot of things we're going to talk about. But I think you do go into that experience, and it couldn't be somebody else's experience. Like, you very much know it's Telfar's. And I think another brand that we both love is Clare V. Like, that store experience is not somebody else's store experience. It really is very specifically Clare V. And if you took off the logo on the windows, all of the parts and pieces, and walked through that store with the books, the merchandise, the pop of color, all of the parts and pieces, you would know it was Clare V.
Yeah. I mean, I think they do differentiation, not just, like, a lot of it also comes through in the product, which is great. What you want, but it's also in the space itself. And I think they're smart. Like, they always have the monogramming station. They have a really nice cash wrap area that you come to know if you go to several Clare V's, and that experience is really good, and how they package things up is really well done. And so they've just thought through a lot of those details, so that when you think of Clare V, you also think of all those details, which I think is another part of it, is the memory of these experiences is also.
Yes, for sure. So positioning, we're saying, is vibe, energy, and brand. And for me, it's almost, can you go in there without any logos, any names, and know that it's a particular experience? And that's when you know a brand is really winning.
Yeah. All right.
All right.
Let's talk about experience, which we've broken into customer service, which we've broken into other things, shoppability, fitting, and bag packaging and presentation of all of those things. So, like, that's what we'll cover in this section. Let's dive in with customer service first.
Okay. So customer service, I feel like we can't have a retail conversation with customer service and not acknowledge Nordstrom's. It's to me one of the things that they built their brand off of. And I was with a good friend this weekend who loves the lenient return policy, and like that kind of came up, right? Because they really established so much of their brand around that. You could come in, you could bring anything back. Like, and it created an atmosphere at the time that was quite innovative. This is what, 20 years ago? 25 years ago? It was quite innovative, and it really established them. Like, it does more than just creates like, oh, okay, I can return things. It says like, okay, well, I'm free to buy here. You feel kind of this more openness to kind of go and experience and try something if they're kind of gonna make it easy and non-shame you in kind of the return. Because for me, returning something is such a pain in the ass. But I think that,
that's a whole other category of things. We could go.
Right.
We could have a whole podcast on that. Day. Yeah.
But I don't know that they're, I think Nordstrom's and all of the department stores, and that's again another podcast, are struggling. But that's something that they could really, hang their hat on. Well, that sounds like a phrase my grandfather would say. And then the other thing for me, from a customer service standpoint, that I'm still talking about is Bombas.
Right. Not a physical experience, I will say, but a good example of what could be brought into a physical experience.
Right.
Maybe?
So yes, exactly. It's customer service in general, right? This was what, 3 years ago, maybe 4 years ago. I think I was really into the socks. I got some for you and Harry and Dave. Like, I bought all of these different socks. These socks are rad. And then I ordered for me the wrong size. And I was like, oh, fuck. Like, I really hate returning things. It's going to be a pain in the ass. I should have ordered a smaller or a medium. And I reached out to them, and they weren't just like, hey, don't worry about it. Like, don't send it back to us. We'll send you a new pair. They were like lovely about it. Like, oh, no problem. Like, why don't you keep those? Actually, why don't you gift them to somebody else? Because it was around the holidays and we're going to send you out a new pair. And to this day, I'm still talking about them. To this day, I'm still talking about them. Whereas there's bad customer service experiences that I've had, i.e. my glasses, and I'm still thinking about that. And I still go and buy glasses from this brand, but it makes me mad every time because they don't have that same, like, customer service ladders up to something more than just a liberal return policy and what you can and can't do. I think it really sets a tone for the brand.
Yes, 1,000%. I mean, it's not a retail experience, but I've been talking about it all week where I'm staying at the hotel, the Ludlow. And, it's just like everything has been like today, they couldn't find my package. She's like, let me personally go and find this package for you. She comes and she finds my package. It's just like, it's when you feel valued. And I think that so many people, I recently bought a brick, and I will say this is again a digital experience. But while I was on the website, it was like, your brick will be delivered like guaranteed by this day, which I would put under customer service of like knowing that something is going to happen for me. And then I got an email today following up saying, just confirming that you actually got it because it was delivered to a hotel. And so they must have picked up on that and thought to themselves, why don't we just do the due diligence and make sure she got it, which is amazing.
Wow. Love that.
I do. And so I agree. I think that it's something that, again, I think for me, it comes down to a memory thing. That's what's happening to you. You come back and you have this positive memory, and it comes down to the people, and it comes down to how you felt valued, and that your time was valued, and that your purchase was valued, and that you weren't just a cog in the wheel, which, I will say a lot of retail places, it's just like,
for sure.
Feel great.
For sure. I think that's well said. And I think especially as we're moving into the trust economy and all of those parts and pieces, customer service is only going to be more important. So really lean into that. All
Agreed. Right. We got to keep moving.
Yeah, we do.
Yeah, we got to go faster. So we're going to talk about staff, which honestly falls into the customer service piece and just making sure it's training staff. We've done it. We've made brand books to do it. It's very difficult. It is incredibly worth the investment of time, energy, and effort. But I would even say uniforms within that. Like when we went into Massimo Dutti in Italy, this was 2 years ago, and we are still talking about those uniforms and how good the uniforms felt. And we were like, can we buy that uniform? And they were like, no, that's a uniform. You can't buy it. But it creates an energy. I went into a store in New York City. Of course, I won't be able to remember the name of it, but I can include it in the show notes. But he was wearing this great apron vibe thing, which, normally I'm not into the aprons, but it was perfect. Like, actually, it was a chore jacket. That's what it was.
Oh,
it was a chore jacket, and it was really good. I should have taken a picture of him.
Yeah, it totally makes a difference. And uniform feels very tight to me. I think especially in retail, you want people to have like an expression. But for some reason, the Massimo Dutti, it feels fashionable, but it also feels very clear that they're salespeople. And I think that mix of people is really helpful. Like when we were just in the Gap in New York.
You literally didn't know if anyone was working there.
I was like, can you find me a size in this? Or, because it's embarrassing to ask somebody that's not working there. Like, that's not great. So yeah, I think it's okay. And then staff, as far as vibe, language, and brand fit, when it was like, again, I still remember this, and this was maybe 3 years ago. Who knows? When we walked in New York, I think was on Crosby Street, maybe it still is, to the Aime Leon Dore. God, am I ever going to say that right?
Aime Leon Dore. I don't even know if I'm saying it right.
Probably are. It was just a complete shift. Like those people were like rad at customer service, but yet they totally fit the brand. And that combination, impressive.
Yes. I mean, we went into Psycho Bunny this week, and it was like kind of the exact opposite, right? It was like this woman, and we worked with that brand in the past, and we walked in and we were like, who is this lady? Like, this is not the person. You want to feel like the person that you're shopping with is the same as customer as you, right? That they would understand what you're there to do, or and we've talked, I think, even at Clare V, I felt the same. Like
that's what I was thinking about.
they always have. They do uniform interestingly because they also wear the brand, and so they're always wearing the brand, but it's it's not cookie cutter, and I would still put the uniform.
Yes, I agree. It's just some liberties with the name, and I think they're always adorable. I think that's a great example, and they always fit the brand.
Yes.
And it just, again, it's like, yeah. All right, keeps moving.
We got to move on.
Come on.
Shoppability. Great. So do you want to define shoppability? Because that's not maybe obvious to people who aren't retail people.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's what it says it is. It's really the ability to kind of be able to walk through and find whatever it is that you're looking for. It's not necessarily like it's a combination of the wayfinding and like how many items are on a hanger, and can you kind of push through and be able to see this and find your size and see things that are inspiring and that go together. And it's a mix of kind of merchandising, flow, wayfinding. It's kind of all of the overall parts and pieces.
Yes. And we've talked about a bad example of shoppability, which we've mentioned before on the podcast, I think, is Sezanne. I think they have terrible shoppability.
I was just in New York and I waited in a fucking line to get in that store. And then I was like, what? I don't know what's happening there. And we love the brand. I got to go to take you to the Country Mart store because like that's a better experience. But yeah, that it continues to.
And what's not working there is just, for example, they have a sweater wall. It looks really beautiful. We've been in rooms where people are like, let's have a sweater wall. And it's like, this is not how people don't feel comfortable picking that up. They don't want to take the tissue paper out. They don't want to be precious. I hate when I have to like refold everything and I feel like I'm like messing up the display. Or if you're going to do that, like just have people like coming around so that it doesn't feel like I'm like completely ruining your entire display.
Right.
Or that you don't even know that you can touch the display and shop from the display, or that they won't allow you then to shop from the display. Like it's a very confusing experience in that store.
Yeah. It's a hard experience. Or, so they have that kind of wall as they did in New York, and then like almost like a counter in front of the wall, which is a little bit like, oh, somebody's standing behind that counter. Can I not just have a rack of one of each item that you have in there so I can look at that as opposed to taking out the paper, do the thing, and then like sheepishly putting it back because I'm not going to fold it exactly right. But just have a rack that then inspires me to look and go, and then, a salesperson to connect that if need be to find my size. But at least it's another way to see it. Sweater walls are great. And walls, I would say in general, are great. Like denim walls, sweater walls, shirt walls, those are all great visually. But the shoppability of those really needs to be thought through. And Sezanne's the perfect example. Okay, let's talk about great examples.
Let's talk about great examples. I would say our recent trip to London, I thought Gymshark killed it with shoppability. I liked how everything was organized. It felt very clear, like this is what this is for. They had all of these different leggings. It felt like I could see all the leggings, but then they also had great mannequin displays. So I was like, okay, this is how it's going to fit. This is what the crotch looks like, because we could talk about crotches of leggings all day too.
That is a separate podcast.
Yes. But I think they did a really nice job of, and things were organized by color, which, for me, that works for me.
Yeah, totally. And I think in that same vein, Alo is another good example. And I think it's interesting to bring in the athleisure, the sport brands into this because there's so much merchandise. It's so complicated. And the fact that you can go in Alo, they just opened up 2 storefronts on Abbot Kinney, and it's huge, but it's beautiful and really well done. And you can merchandise and have kind of this entire story. Here's the bra, here's the shorts, here's the shirt, here's the jacket, here's this entire thing. And it makes you kind of inspired to purchase it maybe as a set or as an idea, but also you can actually see your size. You can pull it. You can understand. Then there's the mannequin. You were stoked about, the shoes. They seem to just each be telling a different story, but then following through on the rack or whatever was available there in a way that you could actually get to it, find your size, and, buy it.
Yes. And then COS, I think, also does a great job of shoppability. I can always buy things there. And they are similar, like, the t-shirts are folded, right? So you can find the size that you want. But they have a one at least hanging so that you can see and decide if you want to find the size that you want. And then you can find the size and go and try it on. It's really not rocket science, but for some reason, I would say shoppability is one of the biggest issues that I see in stores.
I think that's absolutely true. And because I think part of it is also like, okay, well, how many items are you going to have on the floor and how many sizes are you going to have on the floor? And most people want to just like overrun that and say, well, we want it available on the store if they don't want a salesperson. And there's some truth to that. But also the more styles you have or the more sizes you have, the harder it is actually to get to. So I think in all of these, it's understanding the space, the balance between the shoppability of having all of the things and the sizes out, but also being able to shop in it. I think for every brand, it's a little bit different. But I agree with you. I think it's one of the most important and one of the things that's really hard to nail.
Yeah. All right. So let's talk fitting rooms for a second, because this is an area that I feel very passionately about. I think it makes or breaks the store experience for me. Like, it's like, if I'm going to buy and try on clothes, which is always like for you kind of enjoy that process. So I think you're there and you're just in the zone. And I'm going in and I'm like, this is the most stressful part of shopping for me, is the trying on the clothes and like, things not fitting, deciding where the mirrors are, like wanting that experience to feel like a valued experience. And I think so interesting how it's kind of the forgotten zone. Like, I went in the Kith store in Williamsburg this weekend.
Oh.
This store is amazing. Like, it's so interesting. It's got a round space. You walk all the way around and like the rack is round, and then they
Cool.
have this cool shoe center in the middle. The shoes are completely not shoppable, but like, you can ask for your size, it's fine. And then I get to the fitting room and it's like, it could be like, I mean, it's like going into a bargain basement store. Like, I was like, really? Like, this is the moment that you think like we're not going to make the investment? Where do you think that people are taking photos in your store? Like, where do you think they're doing that?
Yeah.
And I can tell you that they're doing that in the fitting room.
There is so much need and opportunity. And it's something like, I want to say it's 80%. When you take something into a fitting room, I want to say it's like 80% likelihood that you're going to buy that item. It's something like that. So when I was at American Eagle, we spent so much time overhauling the entire system, because it's about lighting, it's about space, because lighting is so important. And some, fitting rooms have, well, you can change the lighting day, night, kind of a
Gymshark had
vibe.
that.
Okay,
Gymshark
which
had
is
like
great.
four
Duh.
different lighting systems. It's a little
Yeah.
overkill, but
Yeah, it might be
I
over.
liked it.
Exactly. And then, so it's that. It's to your point, like you're going to take a picture in it. So what's the mirror? What's the vibe? What's everything else look like? And then I think it's like, where is the person going to be that's going to be like yay or naying for you? Like, who's your shopping buddy going to be? And where is their space?
Yeah, I think the
It's
shopping
so many
buddy
things.
thing too, we can talk about that as Find My Size. But I will say, so there's a lot of issues happening at Printemps, and I will say shoppability being one of the major ones that we're hearing a lot about from people. Like that store experience, like the
Love
vibe
it.
and the energy is
Love it.
interesting, but obviously a repeat customer to buying things is becoming a problem for them. And I think there's things that they could do. But I will say
We
that
have
their
some
fitting
ideas.
rooms, we do have some ideas, but their fitting room experience is different in each zone. They feel really premium, very special. I will say, like, totally precious situations, but it calls for it in that space, right? I think actually Madewell has like not a bad fitting experience. Like, I always feel like there's like somebody there manning me, finding me things, bringing me different sizes. And I liked, and we'll talk about this, Find My Size, but I liked to have a recent experience at Everlane. They have a screen in there so that like you're like, do you have this in a extra small, or do you have it in a medium, whatever? And they were able to find it and then tell you if they couldn't find it. They were able to literally just order it right there for you. Like, it would have been like boom, 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 boom.
Yeah. Yeah. I think fitting rooms is like the last frontier. I think when you design a store architecturally, like I think that's where like it's like, oh well, we don't have any budget left. We're not going to do anything. And I think it should almost be reverse engineered, because it's so important, and we'll find whatever that stat is, but it's quite likely that you're going to purchase something if you take it to the fitting room. So make that experience rad. The Find My Size thing was amazing, because there's many stores that have done that or tried to do that, but the fact that this actually worked.
Yes. Yes. I mean, digital experience in general, and that could be something that we tack onto a different podcast, is really challenging because a lot of times they stop working. But these were basically iPads, and that could work too. And iPads are easy to replace out. So it's like, it doesn't have to be this enormous, like, kind of infrastructure situation. I think it's just about the ease, because like you said, once you're in there and it's like, hey, I like this shirt, but it didn't have it in my size, you know, or they didn't have the color I wanted in my size, but I tried the other one on and I feel good about it. Such a game changer in terms of like, yes, I want to buy it.
Yeah. Yeah. People, yeah.
All
I
right.
need to figure that out.
We got to
Okay.
move on.
Yep.
Bags, packaging, and presentation of it all. I will also say Clare V does a good job of this, but not to keep coming back to them. I think Corso Como in Milan as like kind of pinnacle experience of this. Like obviously, again, very specific, but the presentation of their wrapping papers and their bags and all of these things, it just feels like you're like every purchase that you make, you're like, my gosh, like I almost want to make a purchase just to get the wrapping paper.
Yeah. Yeah. It all comes back to that. And like somebody's going to be walking around with the bag. They're going to have something in it, like make that experience great. I think so often or some of the time brands don't think that through, but like really think about the logo, the placement, the sizing of the bag, all of those parts and pieces. Cause when you're killing it, people are going to save that. Like I remember at Fred Siegel, when we created the reusable tote bag for Ron Herman. You know, he was like, the whole point of it was like, he was seeing it with like, you know, cleaning ladies on bus stops. And he was like, he knew that he'd kind of made it and passed that on because it was something that was reoccurring and that was something that was reusable and actually being used in that way. And I think to really think about how the bag is going to show up, and it's more than just that moment.
Yeah. And I will say, so we went into Marimekko in New York recently and they did like a cute bag. I will say, I wish that their wrapping paper had like a little bit more of a vibe, or the sticker had been a little bit more energetic because it's such a pattern driven brand. It felt like a kind of a missed opportunity, but the bag was cute and you walked out feeling like you walked out with an additional piece of the brand. And I think that's, you know, who does it really well?
Ooh.
Officine Buly.
I have one of those bags here. That's they're
saved
square.
That bag.
Of course you save that bag. That's fucking rad. Yeah.
Yeah.
It makes a difference.
That bag felt like, and they hand wrote my name on the bag. Like I felt like
it's beautiful size.
Made $100 purchase and it felt like I made $1,000 purchase.
Yeah. And I think that's the intent of packaging. Like it shouldn't matter what it is. And again, like to your point, Clare V does that well too. Like it could be the smallest thing. And it's just like some stores, you know, come around the corner and very Japanese kind of hand you the receipt or the bag or things like that. Like it's just about that experience and how it ladders up to that for your brand. Okay.
Yeah. And the duster bags and things like that and Clare V, like you want to keep them and they look really cute.
I do keep them. The pack of shoes.
Yes. All right. Let's move on. Store design, which, you know, like we're not coming in and talking like major architectural store design stuff here, but we're talking about it in terms of the retail experience, right? Just to be clear. I mean, kind of both.
Good differentiator.
So storefront, which we are differing from windows, which we'll talk about at the end. But storefront is in like being welcomed into a store. We were recently talking about a brand that we've worked with who like has their doors always closed to save money for the which, you know, yes, environmental, and I applaud that, but literally I was in there and I kept seeing people doing this against the door because they thought that the store was closed, and that's not welcoming.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And I think it goes back almost, it starts architecturally, like what is the particular storefront? Because thinking about how some storefronts just feel welcoming, like within kind of an architectural space, what we're talking about was, I think, more of kind of an A-frame and was a little bit harder. If I think about the stores on Abbot Kinney, some of them you have to kind of go through a gate and walk up and it feels like, oh, I don't know if I want to make that commitment. And then some feel much more open. So I think it's really understanding what the footprint is architecturally and then how you can make it feel the most welcoming across the board. Like however high-end or mass your brand is, you still want people to feel welcome in your store. So I think really looking at that, and I think honestly, it takes a little bit of an individual look based on the architectural footprint of the store and having a little bit, oh shit, we really got to keep our doors open because people are wondering. So you got to balance that out.
Aloe has done really, because they have this kind of like portal feeling to their door, which feels really like open. It's like you're just walking in, right? And it feels great when you walk in there. Because it's like, oh, okay, like it's almost like pulling you in. Like you're like, it's so big opening. I have to go inside and just see what, because you can also see so much already of like what's in there. So it's like,
yeah.
well, of course I'm like, I'm basically already shopping.
Right. You don't feel kind of trapped in that. You feel very, again, it's very
Yes.
welcoming and it's very opening.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think On
We
does a
went
nice
by
job
that
of that.
mattress.
Yeah.
Yeah, mattress store that we went by was at Casper, and they had these
Oh,
gigantic gates that they close at night, and so these gates looked like prison cell doors, and it made the entrance feel like I was like, "Ooh, like, I don't wanna go in and shop for a mattress in a prison, like, no thanks." And it's like, I get it, it's part of the architecture, but make it a bright color, fix it
right.
somehow.
Right. Put little clouds on it. There could have been moments of that. And I think that's where it's like, it's okay, like here's your brand footprint, get it. But you have to look at the specific architectural footprint that you have for each store and may need to make some tweaks. 80/20.
Yeah. All right. We're going to go quicker. So we're going to talk about space allocation and zoning, which I say is, you were like, how is that different from shoppability? But I do think it's about, we've been into several stores like Aviator Nation or even Wilson, which I will say is a positive experience. But like
Wilson was great.
the way that they had organized their store, they had this like the back room where they were actually selling tennis rackets, like the thing that they maybe should have celebrated the most. Felt like an afterthought. The lighting was different. It was like this very bizarre zone. You weren't even sure if you were supposed to go into it because they put the sales
Right.
rack in there, and then they also
Yes.
had storage in there. It was very strange.
The lighting was rough.
Aviator Nation has this bizarre like rec room in the back that just feels like it's got like a ping pong table in there. Like,
Yeah.
what are we doing in here?
Yeah. Feels like you should be
And
doing
I
lines of cocaine and like other
yeah,
things.
whereas, like, for me, like, when I think about Bon Marché, I think of that as, like, great space allocation, right? The way that the shop and shops work in that store on that first level is very different to how it works in most of those kind of other big retailers. Like, they really feel special and zoned, and then they have that special, like, seasonal space, and that always feels really good. And then the way that they do the kids' room, like, they move it off to the side so it feels, like, kinda secret, and the kids are really into that. I think they do a really great job with making the zones all feel like places that you're going into and exciting, and each one is kinda treated differently, and it was really good.
Yeah, and I think Printemps does that. I think IKEA does that well. I
Yeah.
think it really is. I think as kind of, stores are getting more into experiential, it's almost becoming what technology was. I mean, that was kind of our experience with Wilson. That store was amazing, was rad all the way through. And then you get to the end of it, and what feels like should have been a really special felt like kind of technology not working. The lighting, there were a couple light bulbs burnt out. They had kind of this rad space, but it wasn't being celebrated. It felt like it wasn't even used. Like we really, truly weren't sure if we could go back there. So I think are kind of these experiences that brands are catching on to and wanting to create, but they're not necessarily thinking them through all the way to execution.
Yes. And then I would put lighting, and we'll just touch on just how critical it is to, like, making the clothes look and feel amazing. I put Bodhi in here as, like, one that I really like. I was in the Bodhi men's store this weekend, and, like, it's kind of the opposite of bright lights and, like, things looking, but it was that it extends the brand in the same way that Aime Leon Dore's lighting is, like, perfect for them, right?
Right. That's a great point. That's a great point. Like lighting isn't just about make everything fucking bright so that we can see everything. Again, all of these, it's a beautiful dance when you do retail right. It's a beautiful dance of like, what's right for the brand? Yeah, but let's make sure things are lit. You want people to be able to see them, but you're also creating an atmosphere. You're creating an overall vibe, and make sure that you're doing that right for the brand.
Yes. So pay attention to your lighting. All right. Visual merchandising and environmental design, and we'll like kind of like go right through in the next 10 minutes. So let's talk product presentation, because I know that this is like massive for you when you walk in a store. Like this
Yeah.
is kind of one of the first things you talk about.
For sure. I mean, it's always, because it's what's the windows are maybe what's pulling you through, but the product presentation is what's kind of it's like music on a journey. Like it's like, how are you navigating the store? And it's the pops of color, way it's merchandised, whether it's done by color, what the mannequins, like how it's all connected. It's the beautiful kind of visual language of a store, and it
Yes.
really articulates the brand.
Right. And you talk a lot about like face outs, and then there's not face outs and things
Oh,
like that.
so many things. Hangers should always be as a question mark. And then when you walk in, they should always face you versus facing back. We went into Gap. I can't remember if it was this time. I think it was better. But at one point, it was done all the opposite way so that men's was faced out. But then when you did the women's, and they assumed that you were going to walk through that way. And there's a very, very specific, that's why women's is typically always on the right. There's a very specific way that people walk through stores. And so typically merchandising speaks to that. Don't put the butt of the pants out, put it at the front. Like, don't put the hang tags out, but make sure the sizing's clear. Don't put like, there's so many parts and pieces within that. Color stories, don't hide black in the corner. I mean, there's so many like how to within that, but it really makes sense and it really works because visual merchandising is like the beautiful music, again, the beautiful kind of glue that holds everything together and orchestrates you through the experience.
I think what it does though is, again, for me, it's like it makes me buy more things, right? Because I'm starting to see how this is going to look on me before it's already on me, right? You're starting to picture yourself in the visual merchandising of the whole situation. And you start pulling things off the rack that are going to create these like versions of this world that you have seen.
Yes. It's
I
inspiring
think
you.
Wilson was killing it. Like, I loved that store. It felt really, really nice, the way everything was really working together.
Yeah, because a big part of, like, Wilson's a great example. A big part of it isn't just saying, like, okay, and with just maybe Beyond Yoga, like, all of the pants go here and then all the sweatshirts go here. Like, nobody wants to walk through that experience. Like, if you want to get it as a sample sale and it's 50% off and you want to grab a sweatshirt, fine. But you're taking you through the brand experience. You're taking you through, oh, look at this skirt, and isn't it rad with this sweater? And they're both patterns, and then you can wear this to kind of calm it down, and this sweatshirt, and it kind of takes you through. And it's really about visual storytelling. And so I think it inspires you, not just shows you what you want, but actually inspires you. And if they're doing it right, takes you on a journey so that you can start to see those things. Yes, there's the mannequins and hopefully they're styled in the way of the brand, but then online, what's in the hangers, how it's hung, kind of that entire process, the photography that's up there, the props, anything like that is all a part of telling the story of the brand, the visual story.
Let's talk propping and lifestyle merchandising. So again, in Gap in New York, which we liked the new Gap, actually. I think we're seeing the vision.
Yeah. Execution needs to be a little bit tighter.
Yeah,
Execution needs to be a little
it's
bit
like
tighter.
you can see where they're trying to go at least.
For sure.
But
on paper.
Then they have this bizarre bookcase in the corner where it's just like, here, this is where we're just going to put some random books. And it's like, we don't even sell these books. Like, it's very bizarre. I think someone who's doing it that well is Buck Mason. I like the way they style their stores. I think that feels really pretty good.
Yeah, I was just in there and purchased some things. Yeah, I think that's a great call. I think that's a really good example of, and they do a great job. It's pretty shoppable. I wouldn't say it's very shoppable. It's pretty shoppable. You definitely need somebody to help because also color stories and things like that, a lot of things look very similar. Yes. But I do think within the photography, the books, they have a good balance that doesn't feel overwhelming. Like in Gap, you could see how it was on paper, but it's literally all in one area. It's like, let's have lifestyle books. Let's have some candles. Let's have some things. But the salespeople put them all, or whoever put them all kind of in this one area that it doesn't really allow it to be a part of the entire store, which Clare V, Buck Mason, like they choose the right amount and then it further tells the story of whatever the product is you're working at and looking at. And I think to me, it has always elevated the brand and helped you to, if you don't know a brand, like let's say Beyond Yoga, if they wanted to just put some things in, they could take their very basic merchandise, but push things a little bit more, bring people into their world a bit to be able to share what they're trying to say with the brand. And it would make the clothes more interesting. And I think that's often what the lifestyle propping does.
Yeah. And we've talked about it. You always am like, it's not free people, it's free people movement.
Yes. Yes.
You also
yes.
like
I think
them
it's FP movement, maybe.
Okay. Oh God.
Yeah, I know. I think that's what it is. The kids will tell us.
Naming is another one.
Yeah. But they do a great job, but they also do a great job within their merchandise is quite interesting and differentiated. Like I think this particular brand, especially in all of the urban brands, is one that really understands differentiation. Like it's a little bit of a pop. It's a little bit of like pushing it, even like their fleece, right? They're color blocked. They tell kind of great stories, which you first turned me on to. They tell great stories. They do great things. And then they merchandise it really well. Like that's a fun store to go into. I've often gone in there with Sailor who loves the store. I will say I'll then try things on and the fit's never right or whatever it may be, but it definitely gets you in there and gets you excited about it. I think that they're a great example.
All right. And then the last 5 minutes, I mean, we talked about photography, so I think we can already don't need to touch on that more, but environmental design, windows and signage, right? I think, we've done a lot of windows in our lives.
Yes, we have.
We've done a lot of windows. And I think that's actually kind of a dying art. I think there's a lot less appetite for it. But I think, again, it does have such an incredibly important role in wanting you to bring into the store. So I like Alex Mills windows. They are very classic, like kind of like, Windows 101 type of like displays, like the, classic desks, but it works. You walk by and you're like, yes, I'd like to go in there. I'd like to shop that brand.
Yeah, I think windows with like something has happened at like the budget standpoint, whereas I think, visual merchandising, people kind of got pulled out of stores. Then it got pushed onto store staff. Then we said, oh, budgets are really expensive for windows. Stores aren't going to put the money towards those. But I think the reality is, like, I think Alex Mills is a great example. I think it's inspiring. I mean, come on, it's Mickey. Like, it's the icon of like, the iconic window display. But you can still do something that's brand right. Put an inspiring rack in there and just make sure it's merchandised really well and the hangers and the spacing's right. And it's done in an interesting way. Like, you can do things that are a little bit more like evergreen in the base of the window and just kind of change it up because people are walking by. And if you have that window space, make it fucking compelling.
Yes. I mean, just a touch on like sort of infrastructure of that. One of the things that I found in my experience, one of the really limiting factors of doing an interesting window is that the person who was designing their store had never dealt with windows or merchandising. And so they didn't put in the correct equipment in order to actually allow them to do interesting windows. So then they're like, oh, well, we don't even have access to any lighting. We don't have we don't have hang racks. We don't have anything. And so then they're just like, every window is like a construction nightmare. I mean, classic, amazing window, obviously, is Anthropologie is another, like, they kill it.
Always killing it. Yeah. But like, again, like that brand is known for that. Yeah. But they have an entire team. So when I was there, we would start with the catalog and that would inspire everything. And then there's an entire team, and I'm sure they still have this, just to do windows. Like, it shows what effort and the importance that they put in. And I think it really pays off for them.
Yes. And it works for social too, because they've turned that actually into social content.
Yeah.
And then you get to watch the artist make it, and it's great. And everybody
Who doesn't want to see that? Who doesn't want to see that? Yeah. Yeah.
And windows. Then the last thing I would say is like signage, which we have sandwich board, but it's also bigger than just sandwich boards. There's signage throughout the store.
Yes, throughout the store. But I think starting with the sandwich board, like, I think I've noticed so much recently of like these weird height. Everybody has a sandwich board. It's always like, can you put it out in the mall? Can you not? Like, what can you do with it? Is it in people's way? Like, it's kind of always this thing. But if you have something, make it mean something and do something. And I think the most interesting ones that I've seen, like, there's some that I take pictures of them if they tell a funny story or have kind of some interesting thing. I think Reformation tries to play around with a little bit of a play on words and tries to make them a little bit interesting. But
everybody loves a pun on a sandwich board, though. And I'm
here for that. But like, make it something that at least gets somebody to stop. I think the other thing that's happening, seeing a lot of, and actually this is a visual merchandising 101, are mirrors, right? Movement and mirrors and windows. Movement so that you're interested in it, but mirrors even more so. Everybody likes to look at themselves. So anything that has a mirror, you will like, listen, I'm very aware of it. I'm here to attest.
But also like having mirrors in the store where you can just kind of hold things up. Like Uniqlo does that. And it's like, I can spare myself having to go and try a jacket on in a fitting room, and I'm here for it. All right, we have to call it a day, but we are going to get into the future of digital on the next one and lots of other things. So there's a lot of fun to come.
A lot coming at you. All right, let us know what you thought, any ideas, and stay curious.
Any brands that you love that are doing it and killing it, drop it in. Or if it's you, drop it in the chat.
Come at us. All right, till next time.
Ciao.
That was it for this episode of Good Thinking. Don't forget to tune in next week.
If you found this valuable, subscribe on YouTube and your favorite podcast app.
And don't forget to read on Substack for even more insights.
And if you really liked it, drop us a heart. We'd love to hear from you.
Ciao. Until next time.